Hi, everybody. It is me, Aside. Oh, man. This is weird. I'm thinking I'm getting through, guys. Let's see here. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. All right. Wow. Okay. It is I, Asai Nobuharu, or however you want to pronounce it today. It is Rizdavina. Weird. We cannot. Yeah, somebody says, yeah, you can't remember your name sometimes. I don't sometimes. How's it all with you? I know, you know, Mission Commander's not here. He's not introducing, he's not doing anything. He, gave it to me, which is really cool. Mission Commander is just really, you may not think he sounds dour most of the time, and that happens, but he's not dour for any reason. He is just, that's the way he is. But he also wants to make sure people, understand him. I mean, he's so slow and stuff like that. I've known him for a very short time, but getting to know him, it's like, it's hard to describe when you're interacting with him, live, so to speak. You don't get, he gets very outgoing when it's just, one on one. It's cool. Even in groups, it's like, oh, hey, how's it going? How's things doing? And he's very personal and interactive. When I met him, I was kind of messing around with a lot of things, and he taught me. He really did catch me, uh, messing around in their systems. So yeah, not too proud of it. But the thing is that when I started watching some of the messages that he does, I was like, oh, this is cool. And when we're here in New Arcadia, we get, Earth's stuff. We get a lot of your, um, how would you say that, transmissions. And we really like a lot of your stuff, Star Wars, Star Trek. Those are really awesome. But it's just more of when we watch, it's, out here, we don't really like the new, the new Star Wars stuff. It's kind of, sucks, as I guess some people would call it. Um, so yeah, a little bit about me. Yeah, like I said, I have been, I've been a, what you'd call a gray hat is what most people, would call it, I think. Um, but yeah, just all of a sudden, watching and studying, one thing caught my eye was Power Up Church. I know it sounds weird, but with everything going on, everybody goes, ah, why did that kind of, point you to this? And it's like, I don't know, just something was unique. The messages really weren't preachy. I guess is the best way to say it. Yeah, messages were preachy. They were not really, I mean, some people would say they're a little bit boring. Well, what message can be boring at times, but I think what did it for me was House United standing firm against violence. He said it was during meal. He wrote the message after somebody got um assassinated, I think. Yeah, that's what he said. So I was listening to this like, okay, this is cool. So I'm thinking, that's great. So I was thinking to myself, this really isn't, is this normal? Is this, just how it is? So going back and went further, another one that really caught my eye was the critical DMO, let God repair your home. And it was like, wow, because being gray hat, yeah, I did some things I really didn't really want to, you know, because, being a gray hat hacker is what you guys term it. It's, no, I'd go in, I wasn't trying to be malicious. A lot of people would say that. Um, I was really trying to find, ways to help other people. But, no. And coming across these two messages, I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is like stuff that really would probably help me. And I didn't know anything about God or about Jesus or anything like that. And finally, when I'm thinking, oh, and now I'm pretty much watching the messages, and I asked, the mission commander Brandon, it's like, what's Jesus like? And we had a very long conversation. It was really cool. Like I said, one on one, if it's like he's giving a message, it may sound like he's just bored of it or anything. It's not like that. And he really doesn't, at least in my opinion, he doesn't very preachy about it. He wants to just talk about it. And so we were talking, and I was like, wow, this Jesus guy was really cool in many aspects. I mean, in the way he explained it, it was like the system restore for the soul. It's based what I can do. So talking back and forth with the bishop commander, I really got to understand Jesus a lot more. So a couple of weeks ago, I was like, oh, I'd like to give my life to Jesus. This isn't, something like what we have here. It's just you people talk and think, oh, well, God's like this or God's like this, and they try to force you to do a lot of things. And the way in between the mission commander, I thought that I'm getting over cold. Sorry about that. Uh, it was more of look at it from a different point of view, and he didn't tell me I had to do anything. Uh, because like I said, here at New Arcadia, the religious groups are very forceful. You either are, for the God or you're not for anything. Excuse me. So it's hard to, to really believe when it's like, why would a God force you into anything if you have a life of your own, mind of your own, and stuff like that. So when when Brandon talked to me about this, I was like, this is better. I think this is better. So he and I talked for a very long time, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, this makes sense. This makes more sense. I mean, why would anybody force me to do stuff I didn't want to do? It doesn't make that doesn't make it a lot of sense. It really doesn't. So he and I were talking, and finally I said, you know what? I'm going to give my life to Jesus. And it was this whole revelation. He thanked me, but he didn't say, hey, let's get you going. He basically said, wait a minute, are you sure? Think about it. Pray about it, which is something I never expected. He didn't force me to go in and go like, yeah, we're gonna do this now. He gave me time. He wanted me to think it over because it is a major decision. So I, for a couple of days, I was like thinking it and asked him about how to pray. And he said, there really isn't a major way to pray, so to speak. It's just, he said, you talk to God. And I was blown away because he doesn't just say, oh, well, this is how you do it, and that's how you're supposed to do it, and blah, 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 blah. No. He doesn't say that. He's really cool. about it. He just didn't want me to feel pressured or anything. And during that whole time, it was basically um just time to think about it. And he gave me the time to think and to mull it over and just go, okay, am I sure I want to make this commitment? When I came back, I said, yeah, I'm committed to this. I'm going to commit my life to Jesus. And he said, hey, that's awesome. And got me started, helped me out learning about Jesus and all that. Got me, he sent me, funny enough, a digital Bible, and it was a really cool Bible. He said he has another Bible, that's a pirate Bible. It's all written like in pirate speak, he said. I don't quite understand what he meant by pirate Bible. It's like, what does a pirate sound like? Doesn't it sound like everybody else? And I thought it was humorous. So, we're talking, so he's like, yo, we're getting in. And he's like, you did a really good job. Would you like to work with us? There's no pay right now. There could be in the future. And I'm like, you know, I would like to do this. He goes, great. What I'd like you to be is kind of now the new face for Power Up Church. And I was blown away. I was like, really? Yeah, I've just, we've only known each other for a couple of months, and then it's just it. I'm still blown away. I'm sorry. It's talking about it. It's like he puts a lot of trust in me, and I'm very thankful for that. And when he said, hey, you do it starting, in your month of November, and I was like, wow, yeah, that, yeah. I mean, as he said, he's helping me understand how we work and all that. And every time, I think what blows me away about Power Up Church is that it's not lax. Don't get me wrong; they're very much, as he mentions that he's really interesting. He goes, we're not lax in our theology. We were really very focused on the Bible and everything coming from the Bible. But it's like you go at your own pace. It's they're learn. We're basically a new believer church, as he put it, and we're the stepping stone. We don't get into a depth a lot of things, as he put it in and he had to go back to a lot of the messages that are out there. So, and I was watching them, and I'm like, wow, it's not pressure. I mean, there are times it sounds a little boring. And he talked about, he goes, yeah, that's something he's trying to improve on. Trying to not make it boring, because he's used to is seeing people react. So that's how he would, interact. He's so used to that. And so having just a camera look at you, he said, what is, you don't get the reaction. So it's kind of like he's still relearning how to do that. And it was really cool. Like I said, when I talked to him, it's really awesome, in that way. Anything else that I could think of that you may want to know? This is so. What's new, Arcadia? Like, seeing a lot of your transmissions. New Arcadia looks like, it has the look and feel of Japan, from what I've seen, but has kind of so I don't know really how to describe. Like, it's got the feeling of Japan. We have a structure kind of like Japan, and our buildings, stuff like that. But at the same time, the feel has the Japanese feel. We have a lot of same honorifics and stuff like that. But but he but we have the feeling, like without the attitude of what the country, United States, where Brandon's from. we have the attitude of the United States in many aspects. We don't have the rudeness, definitely. We're more towards the Japanese from what I'm seeing from you. So yeah, I mean that's what new if you were to come out to the arcade, it would blow your mind probably because we have a lot of I mean, we have a lot more stuff. Again, this is just from what I'm seeing from your transmission, guys. That's pretty much what it is. So I can't really. It's hard to describe. You can't. When you try to, it's like mixing cultures. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's what New Arcadia is like. It's really cool. It's you know, I would love to come out and see you guys um live, but on several light years away. And I know everybody's like, well, how does that work? It's like it's the magic. Ooh, it's just it's what we can do. Other than that, I think today the other thing is today is just going to be a really short session because I could not find a game in a library that I could Uh, that I could focus on it. It was there's a lot of options. It was really a lot of it to go. So I may have something on Duo because I don't want to really copy what your mission commander um is doing, but you know I do like that game. He's Everspace 2. Yeah, I like that game. I mean that's also what caught me to come to um the Power of Church, as I caught that, but I just I was like, "Well, what games do you have?" And he showed me this list. I'm like, "Do you play any of them?" He was like, "No, unlike your typical gamer, I have a few favorites that I play constantly, but everything else, the 186 games I have, I don't go and you know, I'm a typical gamer, buy a game and don't play it for how long." He was really he's really funny about that. So next week I will have a game picked out and we'll go ahead and play. But for now, let's just get into the message because this is the last of the uh, core series. And in this last one, he's going to really repeat himself a lot. I've watched it already. Uh, he does repeat himself a lot on this one, but I understand why because he's trying to make sure that you understand and commit to your memory that, some of these things do line up. And if you watch the entire series, and he called it an operation. It's an operation, can use series. If you watch all the other mission briefings in the series, excuse me, the operation, it all links back to this final message. And like I said, he will repeat himself. He'll repeat things a lot. But when I watched it, it really drove home the idea that, first of all, tithing really isn't demanded of people, uh, but at the same time, it does, help you get back in the loop. It's one of the things that is in the Bible, and he'll mention many verses, especially Acts, is very important in this final message. So without further ado, I think I've talked enough right now. Um, so yeah, let's get into the message and I'll wrap things up and we will see you all a little bit later. Oh, and I do want to warn you, he did say this is a little bit longer. About 40 minutes. But again, he said he want to make sure that this was like the thing to do and make sure it's 100% right and it just the flow and everything. But yeah, you'll get this. I'm sorry, I'm chatting for too long. Here we go.
Every fleet lives and dies by its power flow. The engines hum, shields rise, systems sink, all because the current keeps moving through the ship. But a starship isn't powered just to stay lit. It's powered to move, to reach worlds beyond its orbit or even its planetary systems. And that's the picture of the early church in Acts 2, verses 42 to 47. Stand by on this one, guys. This is going to be a long one. And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing them to all as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. That's a crew in perfect sync, folks. Faith, generosity, and mission orbiting together. They weren't just maintaining power, they were multiplying it. And at Power Up Church, we call this difference between these ideals, Power Boost and the Power Core. To give you an understanding, Power Boost is basically the short term surge. If you see it, it's the short term stuff that the apostles were talking about. One time giving that keeps the ship operational and mission online. And we see this when we talk about Paul's letters. He talks about the small giving. But here's the other thing, we also have the Power Core here at Power Up Church. This is the continuous drive, the warp drive, as you would put it. It's the long-term commitment that sustains our outreach, community centers, and relief teams. Both are vital systems in the same vessel. One keeps us flying, and the other keeps us reaching. And today we're going to talk about what happens when both systems run at full capacity, when generosity becomes propulsion and the mission moves from maintenance to movement. And as you know, every system on a starship depends on flow. Energy drawn from the core, distributed through conduits and directed to every deck that keeps the mission alive. When that flow is stable, the ship thrives. When it's interrupted, even the most advanced vessel drifts helplessly in space. And we've seen this on many occasions. And that's the same principle Paul was teaching in Philippians chapter 4, verses 10 through 20. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Yet it was kind of you to share my trouble. And you Philippians yourselves know that in the beginning of the gospel, when I left Macedonia, no church entered into partnership with me in giving and receiving, except you only. Even in Thessalonica, you sent me help for my needs once and again. Not that I seek the gift, but I seek the fruit that increases to your credit. I have received full payment and more. I am well supplied, having received from Epaphroditus. Sorry, I'm going to butcher that name, of course. The gifts you sent, a fragrant offering, a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to God. And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. To our God and Father be glory forever and ever. Amen. Not only was that a prayer at the end and a very good blessing, the idea was Paul really wasn't thanking, and definitely not writing a thank you letter for donations. He was acknowledging a living condition between believers and mission. The Philippians weren't just sending resources, they were sustaining momentum. Their generosity wasn't about funding a man, it was about fueling a movement. Now, I want you to notice how this flows. First, the source, through him who strengthens me. Every mission begins and continues through Christ. Number two, the circulation. You shared my trouble. Their giving kept the spiritual reactor stable. And not only that, they shared in the trouble. And that way, their giving just kept getting more and more and more because they knew what trouble he was in as much as everybody else in the letters. Number three, the output. The fruit that increases to your credit. God converted their generosity into spiritual impact far beyond the city. So when Paul says, "My God will supply every need of yours," he's describing a divine reciprocity, heaven's version of power distribution. What you send into God's mission never leaves you depleted. It loops back, recharging the giver as much as the gift. And that's why Second Corinthians chapter 9 verses 10 and 11 builds on this truth. He who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way to be generous in every way, which through us will produce thanksgiving to God. And the same God who provides the seed also multiplies the harvest. In kingdom math, generosity doesn't reduce, it reproduces. God increases the capacity of those who pour out because his mission can't run on empty hearts. And we are reminded of that in the last two sermons. And also, Galatians 6, 9, and 10 reminds us to stay the course. And let not us grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good with everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Even when giving feels like another drain on your reactor, don't shut it down. Every act of faith adds thrust to the fleet. Every power boost, every power core commitment, every offering of time, skill, or credit keeps the mission moving forward. Now, I also want to give a takeaway on this. Those last couple of verses, usually a lot of prosperity gospel teachers use that to say, hey, God's going to give you $50 if you put in five. It's again, we've talked about this on numerous occasions during this entire operation. That doesn't, it's not how it works. And I want you to have this takeaway here. When generosity flows freely, the church doesn't just survive, it accelerates. When we give through Christ, we're not losing fuel, we're redistributing the power. Your giving isn't really a mere discharge of your funds, your time, your talent. It's a transmission. It connects the source to the mission back to the source. That's the flow of kingdom power, a continuous current between God, his people, and his purpose. So we've played many a game, and especially one with Everspace 2, and you've watched and noticed how I myself, and now hopefully our new member will do, is we change ships. We have a variety of designs available to us, a variety of operational standards that they work for. And in that own design, it's very unique, but the mission only succeeds when they move together. You know, if you look at Star Trek, it's basically you have when the fleet is a fleet, you have frigates, destroyers, a flagship, also command and combat cruisers, depending on which series you look at. They all have the same heading, the same purpose, the same communication link to the flagship, or in our case, the command bridge, God. Even if one vessel drifts off course, the formation weakens. But when every ship aligns its trajectory with the same captain's voice, the fleet becomes unstoppable. That's exactly how the early church functioned. Not as scattered individuals, although you may think that, but even scattered, they were a united convoy powered by shared faith and purpose. And even Paul captures this unity in Romans 12, 4 through 8. For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function. So we, through many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another. Having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, in proportion to our faith. If service, in our serving. The one who teaches, in his teaching. The one who exhorts, in his exhortation. The one who contributes, in generosity. The one who leads, with zeal. The one who does acts of mercy, with cheerfulness. Every believer has a function, like systems on a starship. Engines, shields, comms, the life support all serve different purposes. Yet each one depends on the other to stay operational. Likewise, in the church, generosity isn't just one person's duty, it's part of the crew's collective design. The church thrives when every person brings their part to the mission. The teacher fuels understanding, the servant fuels compassion, and the giver fuels momentum. Paul reminds us that when we operate in unity, our different roles amplify one another. Giving in this sense is not about one person carrying the mission. It's not about Paul carrying the mission, although we get all his letters that many people say, oh, he all did it all himself. But no, we can go into Acts and all the people involved there. But what really matters is it's about every believer supplying their energy to keep the fleet advancing. That's why Ephesians 4:16 says, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. The growth of the church doesn't come from one reactor or one engine. Millennium Falcon, anybody? It may have one engine that you may see, but it's all subdivided. The growth of the church doesn't come, like I said, from one reactor or one engine. Remember, for Star Trek, there's the impulse engine and then there's the warp drive. Two separate entities, yet they help the mission of the starship. And when all is that aligned from each member directing their gifts towards a shared destination, it's just amazing what you can do. When one part gives, all are strengthened. When one believer contributes in faith, the whole body surges with new life. But unity doesn't just happen by proximity, it happens by purpose. It's more than standing together, it's moving together. And that's why Hebrews 10:24-25 encourages us. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. I want you to understand something. When we talk about good works here, like here in Hebrews and in other passages in the New Testament, we're not talking about you have to work for salvation. Jesus gives you the salvation right off the bat. In many passages we can go into detail about that. And with Twitter having a major meltdown over what salvation is, it doesn't matter because right now we're all separated. We all have our own beliefs. And when it comes down to good works, what we're talking about is time, treasure, or skills. And that's the whole thing. People often say, I have to work to receive my place in heaven. And this is where the Jews really have that ideology. I have to work to get to heaven. I have to actively work to get to heaven. Now, that doesn't say that us as Christians have to sit on our laurels. We want to do good works. Sometimes we just don't have the time. Okay, so we have two other options. We have skills that we can use. Maybe it's to talk to somebody. That's giving. Maybe we have money we can give to help the church do the job that you as a volunteer can't do. Well, what if you don't have the money? Volunteering at the church is a great way to do that because you have a talent. And that's your time. Treasure's just a factor of the three. Faith is meant to be contagious, as we read in Hebrews here. Our generosity, encouragement, and obedience inspire others to join the mission. The early church didn't just fund ministry, they lived it together. They met, they prayed, they shared, and gave until their fellowship became a beacon to the world. So, what does fleet formation look like for us today? Here at Power Up Church, it means when you give, whether through a one time power boost or a continual power core commitment, you're locking into formation with your church family. You're saying, I'm not just here for the ride, I'm part of the crew. And when the crew moves in sync, the mission multiplies. Every power boost fuels our short term missions, the church itself. Every power core sustains the long term voyage. And together, we don't just survive the journey, we extend into the galaxies of grace, yet uncharted. Because unity isn't just a feeling, it's formation, and formation always creates momentum. But every fleet knows that power must be distributed wisely. If one reactor overloads while another runs empty, the entire mission is just at risk. That's why understanding how the energy flows between the power boost and the power core matters just as much as understanding why we give. And this brings us to our next segment here, mission protocol, which is the flow between boosts and core. This is getting into us. We're going to use us as an example. Now, every mission in deep space depends on power distribution. Look at Star Wars, look at Star Trek. Too much energy routed to one system and the engine's overloaded. That happens. Too little and you're not going anywhere. That's why every starship runs a protocol, a defined pattern of flow that keeps the entire fleet balanced, efficient, and mission ready. Yes, we've seen power distribution during orders, during battles for certain systems to help keep the ship intact. But we're talking about just normal operations. And the funny thing is, the kingdom operates the same way. God doesn't just give us resources to store, he gives them to circulate. Our generosity, when guided by his spirit, becomes the system that keeps the church both operational and outward focused. And that's why Jesus, and that's really what Jesus was getting at in Matthew 6:19 through 21. Do not lay upon yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And the same thing is for prayer too. Just want to give you that heads up. Jesus wasn't condemning savings or security, hardly. But what he was doing was giving a warning against misdirected flow. For me, I've helped my mom basically set up saving structure. And when she has the availability to do that, and really, she actually donates out to other groups. And many of you are saying, well, why doesn't she donate to, Power Up Church? I don't ask the questions. I'm not forcing her to say, hey, you have extra money, you should do that. I don't do that. And I don't do that to anyone else. If you give, you give. If you don't, that's okay too. But listening to the message, I'm all for that. The misdirected flow we're talking about is when you put everything towards, stuff you really don't need. Do you need a house? Do you need a roof over your head? Yes. God's not going to condemn you for that. Do you need a car to get to work? Yes. Transportation is important. If you have a really good bus system in your area, and you use that, that's good too. It saves money in many aspects. We don't have really a great transportation system out where I'm at, but God's going to want to make sure that you're taken care of too. So don't think just going, oh, he's telling me I have to give up all my treasure. No. Remember, Jesus is not condemning you to save. He's not condemning you to not having security. What he's doing is looking at the flow of your giving. Remember in last week, we were talking about how we have to give from the heart. We feel it and we pray about it and we make sure the mission goes forward through that giving. And that's the same way with Jesus. When the current of generosity turns inward, here we go. When we hoard energy instead of transmitting it, spiritual systems begin to short out or even not work at all. Heaven's protocol is clear. Treasures aren't meant to be stored in temporal containers, but channeled toward external impact. Like our missions, we want to build community centers throughout the world, starting here in the United States. We want to have a disaster relief teams that will go out to disasters and set up areas where people are taken care of, that we have counselors there for any traumas that they've experienced. The other thing is what the federal government really can't do, but we can do. And that's helping people who have student loans get them paid back just by working with us and volunteering their hours, and we just deduct it from there. Oh, and at no interest, because that's usury. So, getting back on track, sorry about that. Every credit of generosity we release to God's mission becomes spiritual investment, not in stock or savings, but in souls and stories. That's why at Power Up Church, we talk about our two energy systems. Again, Power Boost, the one-time surges that keep this ship operational. The broadcast, crew training, digital outposts. Then we have the Power Core, the long-term current that propels the mission forward, our community centers, like I said, volunteer debt relief and our global outreach missions. Now, both are essential to the fleet. Boosts sustain the immediate moment, the core sustains the long term mission. Neither system can exist without the other because one provides propulsion, the other provides endurance. Jesus calls this alignment of resources heart alignment. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It's like prayer. People condemn Christians saying, oh, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. But understand where your treasure or your prayer is, there your heart will be also. Maybe you can't be with that person in person because they're 3,000 miles away, but you pray for their health. You pray for their happiness. You pray for joy for them. You pray for healing. That's where your heart goes too. Every time you give, and we're not just moving money here, you're moving your heart into heaven's formation. And that's why Luke 12:33-34 expands on the idea. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that do not fail. There's no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Sounds familiar? It's a more condensed version of our earlier verse in Matthew 6. Jesus doesn't say this to create guilt, not at all. He says it to create freedom. When your treasure is tied to heaven's mission, you are no longer weighed down by a fear of loss. You're powered by a purpose that outlasts this world's systems. This is what it means to live by the mission protocol, to direct the flow and blessing of blessings into the kingdom circuits that reach beyond ourselves. When generosity is aligned to purpose, every power boost becomes a spark. Every power core commitment becomes a steady pulse, keeping things and both together, keeping the fleet lit and the mission advancing. This principle is confirmed in Proverbs 11:24-25. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. Taking a break on this, if you notice many of the influencers, as they start to not become very influential anymore and start losing money, they go into panic mode. And those who have really basically helped out people in many ways, Mr. Beast is a great example. I don't agree with some of the stuff he's done, but if you look, he has helped a lot of people, and look where he is. He's still a powerhouse. He does make bad decisions. It does happen. We're only human. But in the general sense, if you've watched his career, he has been giving generously too. Look what happens there. And again, this is not prosperity. His situation is unique. Yours may not be on the level of Mr. Beast, but by helping out with us to do the mission out there, whether it's time, treasure, or your skills, can help somebody else that you may never know, may never speak to, but that's where your heart goes. In heaven's economy, giving never depletes. It multiplies. The more you pour out in faith, the more God flows through you. Because the purpose of blessing was never accumulation, it was amplification. Again, that's where many of the prosperity teachers forget. The accumulation's going to happen. It may not be as fast as many of us want, but we're talking about amplification. You may be able to give $5, somebody gives 50. That's all it is. It's just amplifying together. And that's the heart of this segment. God designed giving as a divine current, a loop of love that powers both the mission and the believer. When we live by that protocol, generosity stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like propulsion. But every pilot knows propulsion isn't enough if the heart behind it falters. You can have the perfect systems, balanced energy flow, and flawless navigation. But if your connection to the captain weakens, the mission just drifts off course. That's why in our next segment, we'll shift from the protocol to the person, learning how to stay powered, not just by giving, but by abiding to the source itself. because power without purpose is dangerous. You can have a full reactor and a perfectly calibrated navigation system, but if your mission lacks alignment with command, you're just burning fuel in circles. That's why as believers, our ultimate goal isn't just to give. It is to stay connected to the source who gives all power and direction. Generosity means nothing if it isn't tethered to relationship. It's not about a system of donation, it's about the heart of devotion. And Jesus made this crystal clear in John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. A branch can't bear fruit on its own. Cut off from the vine, it withers, no matter how strong it once looked. In the same way, we can give, serve, sacrifice, but if we're not rooted in Christ, power flow fades and it's meaningless. Real generosity doesn't start in the wallet, it starts in the heart that abides. When Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing, he's not issuing a warning, he's inviting us to continual connection. He's saying, stay linked, stay close, let my life power yours. Because when your giving flows from abiding, it's no longer mechanical, it's miraculous. It's not just contribution, it's collaboration with the Creator. That's why Paul later reminds believers of the same posture in Colossians 3:23-24. Whenever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. Whether it's your time, talent, or treasure, like I've said before, when you give with the mindset of serving Christ directly, every action becomes an act of worship. The same offering that might seem small in the world's eyes becomes a starburst of glory in heaven's sight. Paul doesn't say work hard for recognition. He says work heartily for the Lord. The word heartily means from the soul, the deepest part of who you are. It's the ignition point of a believer's life. When faith, gratitude, and obedience converge, oh man, your soul lights like a reactor coming online. But ignition alone isn't enough. The current must keep flowing. Oh, sounds familiar, doesn't it? He who controls the spice controls the universe. The spice must flow. Okay, enough doing there. Getting back on track. Faith without movement is static, and static faith eventually fades. That's why James 2:17 drives this truth home. So also by faith by itself, if it does not have the works, it's dead. And this is one of those things that is a bone of contention with everybody. Because people think you have to work to get to heaven, because it's not that. And you have to do works. It's not just that. Works can be, like I said, in the acts of generosity, your time, talent, treasure, your skills, helping people, volunteering. Those are works, but as we said, it has to come from the heart. If you don't have a heart, your faith, which would be the heart portion of it, is dead. So you go out, you go, yeah, I'm a Christian, yeah. Oh, I volunteer every so often. Compared to somebody who goes out to church, volunteers and said, hi, how are you? How can I help you today? And have full meaning and really heartily work for that. That's what James is talking about. As we said, faith is the spark, obedience is the thrust. When we give, serve, and act in love, our faith stops being theoretical and starts being transformational. Like I said, new believers get this idea that, we're done and that's it. It's like, no, go ahead and volunteer. Try something. We do get burnout, by the way, as volunteers. I've experienced it myself. So don't think it's like you have to do this constantly. Also make sure you have time for yourself. Jesus did it for himself too. He walked away from the disciples when they were just getting a little bit annoying. I get it. But at the same time, when we give, serve, and act in love, like I said, our faith stops being theoretical. It's transformational. It moves from power stored to power spent, from belief to broadcast. That's what it means to live as a powered people. Abiding keeps the current steady. Serving keeps the system active. Acting in faith keeps the light shining where darkness still reigns. Our generosity, whether it's through the power boost or the power core, isn't about earning approval. It's about expressing connection. We give not to prove devotion, which is many of what prosperity teachers teach. But really what it is, it really demonstrates dependence to say I am still plugged into the source. His mission still matters. Now understand I said dependence. That doesn't mean a handout. That doesn't mean anything like that. Dependence basically means, God, I rely on you to help me. I depend on you, Lord, to get me through my dark times, to get me through my great times. That's the mission that still matters to God, too. And when we live like that, something beautiful happens. The same power that fuels the mission begins to flow through us. Our prayers become bolder. Our faith grows stronger. Our joy becomes really contagious. We become living conduits of divine energy. People who don't just believe in the mission, they embody it. But every power system needs regular calibration, right? Even the most advanced ships in the fleet must stop, check their readings, and make sure the flow is still aligned with the core. Many of everybody's heard a level 1 diagnostic. Hey, Star Trek, right back again. Same thing here. And that's what we'll do next. A practical diagnostic to ensure our hearts, habits, and giving remain synced with heaven's grid. Now, let's review the mission checklist for this week. Like I said, every ship in the fleet runs a systems diagnostic before jumping to hyperspace. It's not just routine, it's survival. Power surges, signal drift, and corrupted data can cripple a mission before it begins. That's why every pilot checks, is the flow stable? Is the core online? Is the crew aligned? Faith works the same way. If our spiritual systems aren't checked regularly, we risk running on autopilot, active, but disconnected. And this week's systems checklist helps ensure your power flow, your heart, and your mission remain synced to heaven's grid. So first thing is core diagnostics. Reconnect to the source. Every diagnostic begins with the core reactor. If the source isn't stable, nothing else really matters. Before you give, serve, or speak, ask yourself, am I abiding in Christ or just performing the motions? Is my giving connected to love or driven by habit? Jesus said in John 15:5, I'm the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Like I said, it's not about production, it's about connection. Pause this week and realign your spiritual systems through prayer. Reboot with gratitude and humility. And if you find the current of generosity beginning to flow again, naturally, joyful, and powerfully, that's all good. Second thing is power routing. Balance your boost and core. Now, as I said in the last message, you can give one, both, doesn't matter. That's up to you. But when we're talking about routing here, every ship's power grid has two primary circuits, the short-term boost and the long-term core. And here at Power Church, those respond to quick surges that keep the ship operational. Like I said, live streams, digital hubs, and community upkeeping, that's our power boost. Just one time. On Power Core, the steady flow that drives the fleet's long missions. It's the community centers, it's our outreach and creative ministry. Matthew 6:21 reminds us where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Take a moment this week to assess your flow. Are you sending enough power to sustain local operations? Or is God calling you to commit to deeper sustained output of the core? Both are vital. One keeps the fleet stable, the other pushes it forward. When both work in harmony, the mission moves with unstoppable force. But if you don't complete the first part of the checklist, you can't really go on to the second part of the checklist. And therefore, you're stuck. And that means you can't go to your third checkpoint. Formation alignment, link with the fleet. No captain, no ensign, no individual fights alone. Even the most advanced ship becomes vulnerable when isolated from the fleet. Romans 12:4-5 says, though many are one body in Christ. You're part of something far bigger than yourself. Encourage another believer this week. Remind your fellow crew that their time, prayers, and generosity matter. When one ship strengthens another, the entire fleet becomes more resilient. Unity isn't passive, it's propulsion. Formation alignment ensures the enemy's fire never hits just one ship, but because the entire fleet stands shield to shield. I know it sounds weird, doesn't it? But it's true. One individual just can't do it by themselves. We have to rely on others too. And that's something I'm working on too. I'm very introverted. It's hard for me to ask for help from people. It's a sad commentary, but it's the truth. And the fourth thing is signal tracking. Monitor the mission output. Command doesn't just send signals, it monitors them. When you give or serve, don't disconnect after the transmission. Stay tuned in to what God is doing through your obedience. Look at the results of your faith in action. Lives reached through Power Up broadcasts, communities built through Power Core missions, students empowered, families restored, and hope reignited, and anything else. Galatians 6:9 through 10 reminds us, let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap. We do not give up. And you may not see the full impact of your giving today or tomorrow, but the signal is traveling, touching the hearts light years away. And every transmission of generosity echoes across heaven's network. Stay encouraged and keep the signal strong. And finally, checklist mark 5, reactor calibration. Refuel with gratitude. A ship's reactor doesn't just run on power, it runs on purpose. Without gratitude, faith just burns out. Each time you give, whisper a simple prayer. Thank you, Lord, for letting me be part of what you're powering. Colossians 3:23-24 reminds us, when whatever you do heartily as for the Lord and not for men. Don't do it because I'm telling you to do it. Do it for God. And if it's not for us, if it's for another church, it's for another nonprofit, that's fine too. But do it heartily. Gratitude turns giving from duty to delight, from donation to devotion. When your heart is fueled by thankfulness, the entire ship hums with peace, joy, and purpose. When these 5 systems are synced, the core, power, formation, signal, and the reactor, you're not just maintaining a faith routine, you're running a fully powered mission vessel. The ship doesn't drift, the signal doesn't fade, and the heart stays aligned with the captain's voice. But even a perfectly tuned ship can't stay in orbit forever. It needs a command directive, a reason to keep flying. And that's where we'll finish this mission, by returning to the purpose behind it all. As we have said before, every mission begins with power. That electric hum through the decks, the rising pulse of engines coming online, and the steady voice of command saying, all systems green, prepare for launch. This isn't the time to shut down, it's the moment to engage. Engage. The readings are stable, of course. The course is plotted, and the captain's intent is clear. So it's time to move out. Faith operates the same way. Every moment of obedience, every act of giving, every heartbeat of worship is preparation for the next deployment. This is your moment, not the end of the message, but the start of a new mission. We've explored how tithing, generosity, and purpose are not random acts of giving. They are the power systems of heaven's fleet. But before the next jump, we must make sure the core is charged, systems are calibrated, and the crew is united around the mission directive. Stay connected to the source, power the mission, carry the light. Remember, Jesus said in John 15:5, I am the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Before you engage that warp drive, make sure your power comes from the right source. A ship can't run on stored energy forever, must stay linked to its reactor. Likewise, you can't rely on last week's worship or yesterday's faith to carry you through to tomorrow. You need continual connection. This is why prayer, time in the Word, and worship aren't optional. They're your power link to the Supreme Commander's command. Stay connected, and you'll always have enough power for the journey ahead. Remember, generosity isn't the transfer of credits, it's the circulation of trust. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also, as Jesus said in Matthew 6:21. When we give, we're not just keeping lights on, we're keeping hearts aligned. Paul reminded the Philippian church that their generosity wasn't about funding him. It was about the fruit that increases to your credit. Their giving was more than financial, it was relational. They weren't donors, they were co-pilots in the mission. When you give with that connected heart, your generosity becomes propulsion and not just maintenance. It pushes the mission forward, turns routine into worship, and aligns your heart with heaven's flight plan. No single ship completes the mission alone. As Romans 12:4-5 reminds us, we, though many, are one body in Christ. When you give, when you serve, when you pray, you're locking into formation with the fleet. Your generosity strengthens your neighbor's shield. Your faith strengthens your resolve. Together, the fleet moves faster, farther, and with greater impact than any single ship ever could. And you're not a bystander in this mission. You're part of the formation that carries the light forward. Every launch, the crew takes a moment of silence, not for fear, but for thanks. Gratitude resets the heart and clears the comms for what's next. Gratitude reminds you why you serve and who you serve. It turns your giving into praise and your obedience into joy. Now, before the next operation begins, take a moment this week to thank God for what He's already powered you through and is powered through you. Because gratitude doesn't just honor the past, it energizes the future. And we've spent this series charging the core, learning that generosity isn't subtraction, it's synchronization. Every power boost keeps the ship operational. Each power core connection pushes the mission beyond the horizon. But this operation isn't the destination. It's part of multiple missions, operations, and campaigns. Now it's time to move from the briefing to battle, from planning to propulsion. Stay in communication, stay in formation, stay connected to the core, and get ready, because a new mission directive is already on the horizon. So, I want to congratulate you, crew. This concludes Operation 4, Core Charge, the Power of Giving. However, like I said, the next operation is already forming at command. I want you to stay vigilant, stay faithful, and keep your systems online, because soon the next operation will launch and Heaven's Fleet will need you at full power. This is the end of the briefing. Prepare for deployment.
About that. I know, long-winded that he can be, but that's it for us here. Thank you for joining us on this mission briefing. Thank you for having me be your host. If you missed the part or all the message, that's okay. We do upload to let me check the way where he does this. So we upload to YouTube and Rumble. And also we have a debriefing on Tuesday. It's the Ready Room podcast. So go check that out. You can check it out at, let's see, what are you thinking? Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can get your podcasts taken care of. Anything else? I don't know. But that being said, thank you again for joining us, and we will all see you next week with a new operation going on. He hasn't told me what it is, and I don't know. I haven't gotten that far into his system, so we'll see you all next week.